was sent through. It was sent through like on a business thing or something, and my thing wouldn't open. Windows wouldn't open because it was like a business. Instead of a regular email, it was like a business. It used to be like a business email. So I couldn't open it with my Windows. Whatever. I couldn't open it. Try to get it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I got the message, the title, but when I went to open it, the attachment, it says you don't have business, something, Windows business or something to open that program.
I'll try to send it again. If I can't, I'll print it for you.
Okay. Very good. Let's see what we find out today. Well, they had to read the paper this morning. They had an article on Tom Reed being in the area, every place he's going to be in the next several days. He mentioned every place but here. Go figure.
Different spot.
It was when I looked there, that was to be in the town of Belgrade, Cattaraugus, and none of those the journal didn't know about any of them.
Oh, is that right?
So I advised them.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably why they did print. They did just those because they had already posted the one for here.
Click again. I'll try a weekly. So I was trying to tell her something, but I wish that I could just get the whole thing there in front of her. I would love to do that. So we just do it and you can do what's in it. Oh yeah. No, I'll do that. There's things that I think it's like to learn. Well, you know, I think one it's hard for me to I'm more of a visual. Yeah, I don't have to watch something do it, write it down, and then do it, and do it every time. And
Hi, how's it going? Good, how are you?
Good. You with the State Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Sheila.
I figured. I'm Seth.
Nice to meet you, Seth.
Campaign manager.
Oh, good to
meet you.
Well, welcome everybody to our town hall. Glad you turned out. And hey, I'm going to do this. I'm a pastor. Why can't we stand up and pray? And then we're say the pledge of allegiance. God, we thank you for this nation, for what we've been given. And your word tells us to pray for those who are in leadership. I thank you for a congressman who represents, who is visible in his district. Thank you. And I pray you'll help us tonight gain more understanding of what's going on in Washington, D.C. and help Tom, I pray, as he shares his heart and his convictions about what's happening there. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
may be seated. Again, very thankful that we have a congressman who holds town halls.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Very good. I believe Tom will have some opening remarks, just sharing some things that are happening in Washington, D.C. Then he'll take questions. We need to be out of here by 8:30, so we'll probably try to wrap things up, right around 5 after 8, 10 after 8, because it might give a little one-on-one time with Tom there. So Tom, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out on a Friday night. I really do appreciate it. And as indicated, we love doing these town halls. We do town halls all the time to talk and listen to people across the district. We have 3 of them tomorrow. So if you want to join us, we're going to start bright and early. We can go to Ellery first, and then we go over to Wirt, and then we end in Jasper. So you're more than welcome to join us. And now we always have an extra visitor with us at our town halls. Sheila, you got to stand up.
Oh, sure.
Sheila's with the State Democratic Party, and what she's doing is tracking us as part of the campaign season. So we welcome everybody to our town halls, and we appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Right now in Washington, D.C., obviously, there's a few things going on.
Yeah, thank you.
First and foremost, wanted to bring you up to date on the Syria situation. You know that I'm opposed to our going into Syria, and I will remain opposed to going into Syria.
Good.
I appreciate that. And there's a whole slew of reasons for that, but to bring you up to date, right now we're kind of in this, I don't want to say gaffe diplomacy, but this kind of backdoor diplomacy into the dealings with the Russians in order to get these chemical weapons under the control of the Russians and get Assad under control. I will tell you, I don't have a lot of hope that that is going to come to a full volition, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's a lot of gamemanship going on here right now. If you watched Assad today, he was sending out edicts dictating terms on how he'll turn over chemical weapons, having us turn over our rights as a country, and other things. I don't know if you followed it today. So I think this may ripen again. But I will tell you that going into Syria, with the risk of escalation that we have if we go in, and it has never been answered to me since I've been back to Washington as to what a limited military strike is, and most importantly, what happens next. And that tells me something that's very troublesome. If you don't have a plan for plan B, for plan C, for plan D, and we're talking about going into Syria, into an area of the world that is very troublesome, we better not go in there, because it's just one step down the slippery slope that's going to lead to a full conflagration of that entire area. So we'll remain adamantly opposed. We'll keep you informed. I appreciate the outpouring of interest, of letters, phone calls, and the expression that our town halls that we held, where people were standing with us as we stood in opposition to that Syrian conflict. And we're going to need that as we go forward. And we'll continue to stand firm. The other thing that's going on right now, just to bring you up to date, we are coming up to the end of September when we're going to have to deal with the continuing resolution, this government shutdown question, and this debt ceiling situation that's going to probably come to roost sometime in mid-October to November 1st. First and foremost on the CR. Somebody came up to me today and was talking to me about Tom Graves and his resolution. Tom and I talked afternoon. And I've joined with him in regards to the proposal to sign on to his continuing resolution, which keeps the government open, but delays Obamacare for 1 year and defunds it for the upcoming future. You know, I have voted repeatedly. I believe Obamacare is bad law for America. It is not good for American health care, and I think it's going to be a train wreck that has been envisioned by even many leaders on the Democratic side, as Max Baucus said from the Senate Finance Committee, one of the lead Democratic authors of the bill. And to delay it, I think, is the responsible thing to do. It also gives us an opportunity to continue this fight. And that fight is to lead to the ultimate repeal of Obamacare. But on top of that, we still have to make sure that we don't lose sight of we need to reform healthcare in America. Healthcare costs continue to rise. And I assure you, we're going to continue to have that debate, be part of those conversations and a part of those efforts to see how can we contain these costs going forward. And everything that we talk about, everything this fall. What they did is they took a bill that did originate in the House, when we're talking about the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and it originated in the House, it passed the House, it went over to the Senate, and then the Senate amended it by stripping the entire bill of all the unrelated text to Obamacare and replacing it with Obamacare. That technically complies with the constitutional requirement that the bill originated in the House and all you had was a Senate amendment to that bill. That's what they do in Washington, and this is part of the frustration as a relatively new member to learn the procedure.
Should that be challenged at the Supreme Court level, that just circumvents the Constitution of the United States?
My understanding of these challenges, and there's been challenges to this degree previously, is that is passes constitutional muster. Because what they're saying is you have a bill that originated in the House,
Did it go
went
to the
over.
Supreme Court?
I believe there's been Supreme Court precedent. Joe is the constitutional law expert who's a Yale trained constitutional law expert over
The
there.
Constitution is explicit that the Senate has full power to amend any revenue bills that originate in the House. That is explicitly in the Constitution. Obviously, this is an extreme case of that, although not an uncommon one. It is sadly a standard practice. In fact, the Senate quite often keeps several minor revenue bills that have passed the House in their back pocket in case they ever want to amend one of their own revenue bills by wiping it and having an amendment in the form of a substitute. But it takes advantage of the fact that the provision that gives revenue originating power to the House of Representatives says explicitly that the Senate shall retain the power to amend those bills.
And that's in the Constitution. And that's the thing, as we deal with these continuing resolutions, as we deal with these bills that people, you have to be very careful what you send over them. And in this session, we have been very limited in what we did because we kind of knew what the Senate would do or try to do with these bills that originated out of the House.
Why can't you amend the amendment or amend the Constitution to recruit that? And why don't you introduce a bill?
Well, I'm hesitant to amend the Constitution. Because it's worked well for 200 plus years, and that's a whole other conversation, a whole other thing. What could happen is that when it comes back, you got to amend it and send it back, and you play this ping pong game back and forth, obviously. And so you just have to be aware of it. And one of the things when I first got to Washington, one of the older individuals who have been around quite some time, she came up and she was saying, Tom, there's 3 P's in Washington that you got to kind of give you some insight. It goes procedure, politics, and policy. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? I mean, what do you mean by that? And what she was telling me is that if you don't know the procedure in Washington, you could have the best policy, and you could have the best politics, and you will get worked around. You won't even know what happened to you, and your best ideas and your best politics will be destroyed because of the procedure. And that's something that you just have to be aware of, and you just got to learn. And that's why we spent a lot of time trying to understand. We were on the Rules Committee, which is the procedure committee of the House. And during that tenure, we learned a great deal about procedure and learning issues like this. Learning issues of an authorization bill versus an appropriation bill. That's an issue that maybe some of you may have been concerned with our position on Justin Amash's amendment with the NSA. You know, we voted against that because one of the things that dealt with is when you're dealing with a piece of legislation on the appropriation side, you're not getting to the underlying authorization language. It's the same thing with this Defund Obamacare campaign. Just so we're clear, you're not touching the underlying legislation. You're just not putting, what you're restricting is the dollars to be spent to fund what's been authorized. There's a two-step process essentially. And what happens when you do that, and this is what we've already seen in Washington, is folks play games with what is then mandatory spending, what is already been appropriated, and they move it around. And because you have the authorization language still on the books, they fund it with these other dollars. And you're getting into illegal acts, in my opinion, but they do it. And that is something we're trying to even learn as we speak of how that process works, and we're going through that learning curve. And it's terrible, but I'm just telling you the way it is.
It's not right.
Amen.
It's not right.
Not right.
I would like to add one other thing. The way he's enforced it, he's given waivers to businesses, to unions, and actually to Congress. It's gotten waivers so that it doesn't apply. My question would be, the American people, we deserve a waiver too, don't we?
We've been supportive of this delay for at least a year. This seems reasonable. And then we get into the issue, if you're going to delay it for employers, why don't you, as he's done with executive fiat, which is a whole nother problem. It's using the presidential power in a way that's never been done before. And that's a whole other problem we should all be concerned about. Because he's not, even if you agree with him, he's not going to be president forever. And once the president does that, you kind of dismantle the checks and balances powers that served us very well going forward. So good point, and we'll continue to move forward on it. I'm sorry, I got people jumping over here. Go ahead, right here. Yeah.
Congressman Gingrich, as I understand, has introduced legislation to repeal the government waiver concerning Obamacare. Would you be in favor of that? And also, please update us on what's going on with the committee investigation of the IRS. The IRS has got to go. And that task system needs to be completely replaced.
Just so we're clear, we believe, as a member of Congress, any law that we pass, any law that's applicable to America should be equally applicable to us. And we continue to stand for that. And when we got this issue of Obamacare waiver, we were opposed to any special treatment for us as members of Congress, and we remain opposed. We are going into the exchanges. As these exchanges come online, that will be, so as a member of Congress, we're going to be subject to the same exchanges as everyone else, and that's the right thing for us to be subject to. There was a question whether or not employers could contribute towards our health insurance like they do now, and our employer being the federal government. Just so everyone's aware, more information, I think more information is better. I am a non-union postal worker for my health insurance through the federal government. How it works is you go to Congress, you become a member of Congress, and you choose between plans that you can participate in. And the only ones I can participate in are non-union plans. And the one that my wife and I sat down and looked at said, okay, postal workers, non-union postal workers is the plan that best suits us. We contribute towards that plan, just like other federal employees. We pay co-pays, we pay deductibles, all those things, and rightfully so. And what we're talking about with this interpretation that came from OPM was, can the federal government share the premium costs like they do now, 70-30? I contribute 30% every paycheck towards the premium. Can we continue, does that continue going into the exchanges? The interpretation was yes, it can. And some people say, well, maybe that needs to be repealed. We shouldn't have any contributions from our employer, the federal government, to our health insurance premiums and things like that. That's another debate, another day. But we are going into the exchanges, and rightfully so. Carl.
Speaking of the IRS,
Oh, the
can
IRS.
you give us an update on where we're going to investigate
emails. Lois Lerner, you saw some emails that came out today. We are finally getting a tremendous amount of the documents. There's about 500,000, I believe it is, emails that we're going through. And some of these emails clearly show, one, this was not a rogue Cincinnati office, a couple low-level employees that did this on their own. Lois Lerner has some questions to answer. Let's put it that way. Some explaining to do. Lucy, you've got some explaining to do that we're Lucy here. Where it's pretty clear that what was being utilized was a targeting of Tea Party groups, that it was done at Washington level, directing to Cincinnati office and others, so there's a higher level of involvement, and that case is building as we speak. And we're building the case like it needs to be built. We're in our committee not going out and trying to throw bombs and trying to get on headlines, get on TV. We want the facts to drive this, because when you get into this fundamental question of abuse of power that we're seeing in the IRS, you want to make sure you have all the evidence. When you ask the questions, you know who knew what when. And so when they start, because one of the things that's happening is these low-level employees that were thrown under the bus, they're like, whoa, time out. You're telling me I'm going to jail because of this, or I'm potentially going to lose my job because of this? Let me tell you what's going on. And then it works its way up. That's the case we're methodically building to get to the bottom of this, and we will let the facts drive us to the conclusion. And we're getting there. It just takes, when you got 500,000 emails to go through and documents to go through, it takes time. New voice. Right back.
I'm a little concerned, motorcyclist, voter. What do you hear about the E15 coming into effect? The ethanol, raising that to 15%. The only people that are making money on that are the repair shops.
Yeah. The ethanol tax credits and other provisions, and we're going to continue to say enough is enough, and it's causing further problems, like you point out, with small engines, our lawnmowers, our other items in particular. But it's coming forward, is what my understanding is, and they're pushing it on the agency side to continue to put that E15 standard into effect. And so what we need to do is make people aware of it. There's a lot of members who don't even know, when you say E15, they don't know what you're referring to. We got to educate a lot of members on it, and we got to say enough is enough with these shenanigans. Because we're also talking about, when you're talking about ethanol, you're talking about corn, you're talking about food prices, you're talking about the impacts that we're seeing at the grocery store as a result of this policy. And I'll tell you, when people are struggling, like they're struggling today, you're spending a lot of money at the gas pumps, plus when you go and get your grocery bill, and it's going up through the roof. You got to ask the question, why? And is there anything we can do to lower those costs? And I think this is an area that will help with that.
Is there anything we can do to stop that?
We're working on it, but I'll tell you that that's been kind of initiated on, it's for us in the House to unilaterally try to stop it. We don't have the authority to do that, but you got to go House, Senate, sign into law. And the agencies are pushing this. And what we need to do is spotlight the agencies right now. That would be, I think, our best avenue of attack to back this off. But my indication, my information to you is that it's moving forward. And we're just going to continue to push forward to repeal it with the facts.
In regards to the natural gas, a couple of facets of this. With the NRG plant, they could also put in a natural gas to liquid fuels part, so you have the dual process. You could then lower the cost of gasoline, because natural gas to liquid fuels is cheaper than crude oil that we have today. You could also export clean diesel and gasoline. By building refineries, you'd be putting people to work. Every power plant could be a dual fuel scenario for natural gas to liquids. If you can get by the EPA rules with no natural gas to liquids plants larger than a college experimental research scale. And is that possible for the House to look at the EPA rules
what you're touching upon is something that, again, part of the game-changing effect of this natural gas shale formation development of natural gas across North America. Because it is true that when we talk about a gallon equivalency, when natural gas goes into the transportation fuel market, you go from about $4 a gallon, $3.87 I think we paid today, something like that a gallon. The equivalency for a gallon of compressed natural gas or liquefied natural gas is about $1.40 to $1.50. It's a significant game changer when you talk about it.
And it's clean.
And it's much cleaner, in my opinion. And a lot of people will argue with you, they'll have that debate with you, but I believe it's cleaner. I think every technology that out there supports that. That is a game changer when we're talking about that. And the good news, just to tell you some good news, we're also seeing the benefits of that here locally. I don't know if you've been to Cummins engine plant lately. They had their first, they went from prototype to production on a large vehicle engine to be powered by compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas. That are manufacturing jobs right here in this county. Huge opportunity. And I'll tell you, when you talk about this going into a transportation fuel sector, we have met with guys from Pilot, Travel America, also the Love family from Texas, which if you travel around, you've seen the Love tractor trailer. Any long haul tractor trailers in here will know what I'm referring to. This is first going into our long haul tractor trailer inventories, and it's going in on a non-taxpayer subsidized manner, which means they're doing it with private dollars to provide the fueling stations for this transition to a transportational fuel. Even in the long haul tractor trailers, we've seen estimates that if that goes into effect and where it's headed, that we're going to be looking at 9 million barrels less of oil a day being imported to America as a result of transitioning to that type of transportation fuel. I'll be supportive of that type of policy because you're not only having an economic benefit, now you're impacting the politics of oil in a positive way for the future of America, and we're going to stand for those types of policies. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're on the campaign committee, or on the committee that writes our tax laws, right?
Correct.
Okay, and yet you were late paying taxes, you used campaign money to pay taxes, and you've also wrote in a tax break for second mortgages that you benefited from. Do you think maybe you should resign from that committee? I mean, it seems like as the person who's writing our tax laws, you shouldn't be benefiting so much.
Welcome to my world, and it's going to be like that for the next 15 to 16 months.
I'm sure, Tom, you've never heard that question before, they'll have you.
No.
I'm sure.
No. Look, we're going to be fully transparent. We're going to disclose. This was a report that came out. They're spending thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars looking at every ounce of my life. We had a report from someone saying they're talking to my third grade teacher, my second grade teacher. I get it. As a good friend of mine, Amo Houghton, who used to represent me in Congress for years, good friend, who's like, Tom, welcome to the NFL. This is what they do. I'll let you be the deciders of whether or not that's appropriate or not. On the question, so they went back to 2005. We have had multiple businesses, multiple tax bills as a result of real properties that we have owned here in New York. We were late on 38 of those bills since 2005. And we paid them in full. We paid them with the net grace window. We paid them with the net grace window that anybody who's here who's received a real property tax bill, you know you got the first month, the second month, and the third month. We paid them within those periods of time. We did it. I apologize. We wish we didn't. I take responsibility for it. And it is what it is, but they're paid in full. The other issue, I think what you're referring to is the second home mortgage deduction. I did not write that. That is part of the tax code. That is one of the things potentially for us to consider as we go through comprehensive tax reform. The last time we did comprehensive tax reform was 1986. Just to put it in perspective, I was a freshman in high school at that time, so I had nothing to do with that when they wrote that policy into law back in '86 when they did the last comprehensive tax reform. And it is a legitimate question whether or not we need that going forward. And that is something that we're doing as we do with comprehensive tax reform through this debate. But I will say that the issue of recognizing a mortgage interest deduction for homeowners, for home buyers, especially first-time buyers, is something that I'm attracted to. I think it makes good sound tax policy, and we're going to be potentially part of that debate to make sure that that interest deduction, and many of you, if not all of you, own homes, take advantage of on your tax policy or tax returns, because that's money that remains in your pocket rather than going to Washington, D.C.
I'll comment on that. It will be a travesty if the government takes away the interest write-off and the tax deduction for homeowners. Because there are many, many people who the only way they are breaking even is with that rebate on taxes. So you will have people who will not be able to afford homes. Secondly, the second mortgage. That is critically important. All right, I own my homestead. It's my second home. The only way I make it is by getting being able to write off my taxes. You look at this area, everyone. There are so many people in this area, especially around Chautauqua Lake, that brings in tremendous tax revenue, that are secondary homes to individuals. So be very, very cautious when you are looking at, because there is going to hurt a lot of people, primarily the first homes and clearly second homes, because a lot of people have second homes as investments for their retirement.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Those are the policy. That's where mortgage interest deduction for homeowners is something that we're attracted to, just as you articulated. Because a lot of people, that's the make or break between being able to afford a home and stay in a home.
We don't need to be on other people's wars. We don't need to buy $700 hammers, okay? We don't need, let's get down to basics.
And that's where we go through comprehensive tax reform. There's three guiding principles that I adhere to. Is we need to simplify the code. We need to make it fair. So it's not who you know, or little deals, side deals, we need to equally apply across the board. And we got to make it competitive in regards to our private sector, especially our small businesses across America. So when we come to this debate, those are the three principles that guide me, just so you're looking inside my mind as to what I'm focusing on. And I think if you focus on those three principles, you get a code that's much flatter. A lot of people are advocating for a flat tax. I don't see that happening just because of the nature of where we're at in America. Because you still have so many people on the other side that are that demand a progressive code, a tax code, and things like that. That you could get into brackets that are much flatter in the sense of the marginal rate and the effective rate. And if you know what I'm saying, what that means is essentially in your tax bracket, you're supposed to pay this, but at the end of the day, you only pay this. Like President Obama, I think his effective rate was 18%, I believe.
Yes.
And his marginal rate, I think, is 39%. I could be wrong, I have so many numbers in my head. And what we're trying to do, just to put it into focus, by making it a flatter code, is make the 39 or the 30% or the 18% equal each other as much as possible. Then you don't get these bubbles, you don't get these manipulations, you don't get these kind of distortions.
Would that include capital gains taxes?
We're talking about making the rates as low as possible, and if you get the rates low on the marginal side to capital gains,
Taxes are low, too low as it is.
and no, if you match the capital gains rates up with the marginal rates, then I think we're taking care of the same situation. Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions. First of all, can you explain the tax that the federal government is looking to put on credit unions? I see, when I go to my credit union, tell the federal government we don't want them to tax our credit union. Do you know what that's about, what they're talking about?
A couple different things that they may be referring to. Credit unions have been tax exempt since their founding. And that's one of the things that they're real sensitive to because of the history of where the history of credit unions, where they come from. They were typically employees getting together, and they weren't doing it for profit motive. They were trying to be an alternative to banks and other things. So that's where a lot of that's coming from. They're also sometimes you'll hear the financial transaction tax that there seems to be a growing, not a growing appetite, but there seems to be more and more people, because there's an insatiable appetite in Washington, D.C. for revenue, that are trying to get into transactions. Chaka Fatah is a member who kind of leads this charge, who wants to tax every financial transaction in banking institutions and credit unions. So they may be referring to that. We're opposed to that. I mean, that's, we're opposed to that. So that's maybe what they're referring to. But it's probably the tax exempt non-profit status that credit unions enjoy. And we've been supportive of that, because when you talk about credit unions, typically you're talking about smaller institutions that are serving, in our district in particular, rural areas. And you need that alternative, because the bigger banks, the folks that are down on Wall Street, they just don't come to our area. And so something that fosters our community, our regional, and our credit unions is something that we're going to be interested in. And I'm not a big fan of raising taxes. So that's why we joined with the credit unions. You may see our name associated with support of that.
Number two.
Yep.
As you may know, I'm a Blue Star mother. And my concern, obviously, is our sons and daughters. Obviously, Blue Star mothers do not want us to go to Syria, so that's right there. But just as importantly, it's important that our children, when they're coming back, that their health care is taken care of and their veterans services are taken care of. We're seeing more and more in the federal government, they want to hit, they want to hit the military, but they don't hit the tankers and the bombers and the tanks and stuff. What they're hitting is when these people come home, there's their access to health care, their access to education, their access to their GI Bill, and then the ability for local governments like Stock County to use federal dollars to help us create larger and better veteran services groups, so that we can, come in and build a better community when they come home. What is your position? How do you feel that you can pull more money for our veterans after they're done with their service?
It's a great question. And we work close together, and we stand with you. And being the son of a 20-year Army veteran, my dad served in World War II in Korea, Silver Star recipient, multiple Purple Hearts. Our family, my 11 older brothers and sisters and I, we're taught young, we stand with our vets, not only when they've been asked to be deployed, or not when they've been deployed, but when they return also. And we're going to continue to stand for them. And so what we're interested in is being a resource. So please, anyone that knows a veteran, has any veterans issues, call our office. We have one dedicated staffer. All he does is services veterans claims, and that's why it's such a priority to me. We put one staffer to do that, and we have had great success picking up the phone, calling the agencies and saying, you gotta take care of that. This is something they earn, it's something we should be doing, it's the right thing to do, and let's move it to the top of the list and get it out. But what you touch upon is there seems to at times be a fight in some of these agencies and the Veterans Administrations and others, that if we delay, maybe they'll back away, and that saves money. And we got to spotlight that anytime we see it. Anytime you come across that in any of these veteran services organizations, because that is the wrong philosophy. And we want to make sure we spotlight it. When we see any of that going on and we put a spotlight on it, it's amazing how fast they run and clean themselves up. So we'll continue to do that. And then on a final point, this is the national conversation we need to have as to spending of our taxpayer dollars. What are our priorities? As I had said earlier, national security, infrastructure, and with national security, I look at our veterans as part of our national security. Not only how you treat them when they are engaged, but when they come back, so that you have great morale, and they know that we got their back, always. And we'll continue to do that, and that's where it's part of my priority of spending when it comes to national security.
Now, one more question before we have to wrap up.
Oh, wait a minute, this gentleman's waiting.
Yep, there he is.
Why don't you walk down the aisle 10 feet, go back and forth, so some person don't have to do what she's doing. But now, the United States Post Office, I understand that they're losing $2 or $3 every year. I go to the post office, I pay to go to the post office, where 75% of the other people in this country don't have to pay. Why, in this kind of world, for the last 20 years, why do they have to get mail 6 days a week? When it's nothing but a bunch of junk mail. Why can't we cut it to 3? Why can't we cut it to 2?
It's a fair, I appreciate that input. We'll take that back to Darrell Lyson, who heads up the postal worker. Now this is something that we've looked at, because the Postal Service is in trouble. There's no doubt about it.
It's in trouble because of Congress.
It's not.
What's that?
It's not. It's only in trouble because Congress is making them fund their health care insurance 75 years
In advance, that's
And
why.
no one else has to do that.
No, okay, that's part of it, and that's what I was just going to get to. And I was just going to get to. That super funding requirement of pension costs is something that we studied and looked at, and we've joined to support the repeal of that extra funding. Now, remember where that came from, that pension super funding and health retiree funding. There was a serious shortfall in historical postal coffers for their unfunded liabilities. And so what they did is they bailed, when they fixed the situation, they said there's going to be this enhanced payment to make sure that these pension and health care long-term retiree benefits are fully funded. Now, they never got back to it and took it off, and that's where I joined to say we need to do that. But even when you do that, it doesn't solve the long-term viability and sustainability of the post office. It takes care of it in a short window, but you have to have long-term reforms, and those are things that we still are looking for answers to. And the 6-day work postal delivery is something that they've been talking about, and they'll continue to debate it, and we'll see what they do in regards to it. But I'll make your opinion known back to It is. I mean, there are some things. Some folks are concerned that you don't do it on this. Just so you know the counter arguments, because you got to always look at the counter arguments. We have a reputation for doing that and trying to look at the issues. You'll hear the arguments that some people rely on the 6-day because they're getting more and more of their medicines through the mail. There is also a competition between a lot of the private carriers, and the private carriers are more of a 6-day situation. And if you take that away, are you going to drive more people away from the post office over to the private carriers, and that will lead to a death spiral that closes the post office? And remember, the post office is in the Constitution. That's one thing we have in the Constitution about delivering the mail, and that's something that we got to be sensitive to. Anyone else? You got 8:15, right? We got to get out of here.
If you want one more, go ahead.
Sure, no, we'll keep going. Oh, we're almost there. Okay. Who's I'm not ignoring you. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You had a question in the beginning. That's why so I just want to make sure we got other voices there.
Casinos. There's a major push towards part-time help and limiting those part-time workers to 30 hours. Because of
Affordable care. It is, in my opinion.
I would like you to comment on the fact that those part-time workers will be taxed. Their tax monies will go to pay for full health care on the reservation clinics for the people that are trying to live with them but not having health care. And the fact that there's a carve-out in Obamacare for Native Americans, who in turn aren't reciprocated by providing health care to their employees.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that input. But you're absolutely, there's an overall push from the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that is in effect of this 30-hour part-time, 50-employee threshold. And that's where even...
But in this unique situation where people that are receiving full health benefits in turn are not providing full health benefits to their employees.
Well, I appreciate that. Let's take a closer look at that, because I'm not... we'll take a closer look at it because I don't know exactly what position you're referring to.
I'm just saying, casino, they are converting their full-time workers to part-time, and there's a major push to make sure that they're limited to 30 hours less.
And that is, I think, occurring because of the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that, the second part of your point, though, I think is where I need to do some research and look into it a little closer? You were saying that because they're exempt in the
Well,
nation?
they're carved out, Native Americans are carved out from the voluntary, you just did that.
Yeah.
And plus, they receive full health care on a reservation, on a reservation. Where the tax dollars come from to provide the full, they're coming from the people that are working in their casinos in part.
Yeah, and so if they're exempt, they're carved out, so we got to figure out why then they're continuing to provide.
Why they won't provide health care to their employees. Or that they're making a business decision, which everybody land-based businesses are doing.
Yeah.
How come they're not land-based for their business decision?
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate it. Tomorrow, meet the candidates from 11:30 to 1 p.m. Chattacoin Park. Also, October the 8th, meet the candidates. It will be at the Casadega Valley School. Ben Lewis has handouts there in the back if you didn't get one. Let's stay informed and be an informed electorate. Thank you for coming.
Be engaged.
Be engaged.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
United States Silver Refinery, Diesel 2 and Diesel 3. How are they all been tied together?
Yeah. Let's,
No, no.